Hello everyone, Ace here, and for today's video, I've decided to debunk a myth regarding real war. Now to clarify, when I say real war, I am not actually talking about actual human conflict. Instead, I am referring to a real-time strategy game from 2001 that is titled Real War. And to add further context, the reason why this game is titled Real War is because it was originally a military training tool known as Joint Force Employment. So because of this past, it is unsurprising that the marketing team decided to give the game the title of Real War when it came time to promote it to the civilian market as well. But let's now move on to the big myth surrounding this particular game. That being that Real War, a game which was developed with the assistance of the United States Armed Forces, which by the way is about the United States fighting a hypothetical global war on terror after being attacked, was originally set to release on the day of September the 11th, 2001, but was ultimately delayed as a direct result of the actual real-life terrorist attacks that occurred that day. Interestingly, the idea that this game was originally set to release on September the 11th itself, but was supposedly delayed because of the attacks, is actually getting pushed in academic circles as objective fact, with one of the more notable individuals trying to push this story being Professor Roger Stahl, as seen in his 2009 book, Misinformation, Inc., War, Media, and Popular Culture. On page 94, Roger Stahl has this to say about Real War, quote, "The trend continued through the decade. In 1997, defense contractor OC Inc. developed a military strategy simulation game titled Joint Force Employment for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, designed to teach joint doctrine or coordination of military branches. The simulator featured real-time strategy, RTS, control of military forces in the field from a God's eye perspective. Designers naturally took the simulator's premise straight from US foreign policy, presupposing the hypothetical existence of the Independent Liberation Army, ILA, a terrorist group with access to a Russian-style arsenal. Taking on the role of the US or the ILA, players engage in conventional warfare as well as psychological operations, leaflet dropping, propaganda, and media campaigns. Eventually, game designers realized it could be a hot home video game title and prophetically scheduled its commercial release for September the 11th, 2001, under the name Real War. When the fateful day arrived, distributor Simon & Schuster Interactive pulled the game, perhaps calculating its release to be in poor taste. By September 27th, the company had reversed its position and the game hit the shelves at the local Best Buy. A spokesperson for the company noted that Real War was well received after 9/11. You get to blow terrorists up. Some people think it's a good release. So yes, this academic work by Professor Stahl is indeed making the claim that the game was originally scheduled to be released on September the 11th, and was delayed in response to the attacks. Of course, this is not the only academic source to make this claim either, as Professor Marcus Power apparently made the exact same claim earlier in 2007 in an academic journal called Security Dialogue, specifically in Volume 38, Issue Number 2, with his article titled Digitized Virtuosity, Video War Games and Post-9/11 Cyber Deterrence. Although it should be noted that this claim by Dr. Power cites an earlier work by Dr. Stahl from 2004, which goes to show just how far back this particular myth goes. But let's now move on to why this is actually a myth and how these academic works by professors who should know better are instead passing off blatant disinformation. The first issue and red flag you may notice if you try to look up this particular myth is that there was no period reporting on this particular incident were it to have actually happened. And make no mistake, had the game actually been originally intended to release on September the 11th, but delayed because of the attacks, then it would have made the rounds in the news. To provide an example of something that did actually happen for comparison's sake, as a response to the 9/11 attacks, Electronic Arts decided to change the box art of Command & Conquer Red Alert 2, as the original version actually did make references to the World Trade Center, with images that didn't exactly age all that well. And it should be noted that while EA did not force companies to return the old copies of the game, they did offer to take back existing copies and replace the box art for companies who so desired that. And despite this being a far less extreme example, and for a game that had already been out for a year, there are actually articles dedicated to this particular story. Whereas again, you'll find no such articles from the time period stating that Simon & Schuster delayed the release of Real War because of the terrorist attacks on 9/11. In fact, contrary to the claim made by these academic sources, Chris Haddock from GameRevolution started his review of Real War by stating, quote, "First, applause, handshakes, and drinks all around for Simon & Schuster Interactive and Rival for resolutely refusing to delay, alter, rebox, or otherwise pussify the release of Real War." In other words, this review literally starts off by saying that Simon & Schuster did not delay the release of Real War in response to 9/11. And in fact, this review even goes so far as to congratulate and applaud them for that decision. So clearly, this review from that time period directly contradicts and discredits the claims by the academic community that the game was originally set to release on 9/11, but was delayed because of the terrorist attacks. And I could end the video here and now. However, there is actually even more evidence that discredits the claims made by the academics, although it also demonstrates a kernel of truth to the story. As the truth is that Real War was in fact delayed from its original release. However, this was not because of the 9/11 terrorist attacks. And we know this because the game was originally set to release in August of 2001. And proof of this comes from an article by Gail Helmer of Combatsim.com from July 23rd of 2001, which among other things announces the delay of Real War from August to a new release window of mid to late September. And in fact, there is even more proof that the game was originally set to release in August of 2001. Proof, as it turns out, that I personally physically possess. And also proof that some of my viewers may unknowingly possess as well. For if you just so happen to own a physical copy of Pearl Harbor Zero Hour, a game that just so happens to have also been published by Simon & Schuster, you may have noticed that the disc comes with a copy of a demo of Real War. And in that demo, you will be treated to a splash screen advertising the game when you exit out of it. That splash screen being important because it notes the release date of August 2001 very specifically. So yes, curiously enough, I actually happen to own physical evidence that completely disproves the myth being pushed by these academic sources, who have falsely claimed that the game was originally set to release on September the 11th, 2001, but then delayed as a direct response to the terrorist attacks. Instead, the game was originally set to release in August of 2001, but was delayed probably due to concerns regarding polish, and instead given a new release window of mid to late September, a window within which the game did indeed release. So yes, once again, this is a clear-cut example of the academic community unwittingly pushing misinformation as objective fact, and have apparently been doing so since at least 2004. Of course, I should also mention that this was not the only bit of disinformation by Dr. Stahl regarding Real War either, as when it comes to the claim that the original military version known as Joint Force Employment was, quote, developed in 1997, I have to say that this claim is highly misleading at best. As while it appears that it is not well known when Joint Force Employment began development, it is in fact reported by the people that made it that Joint Force Employment was released in 2000. In other words, it would appear that Dr. Stahl is possibly using the year in which Joint Force Employment began development and trying to pass it off as the year that it was released to the military, which is like saying that Daikatana was developed in 1995 in order to make people think that Daikatana was released in 1995, when in reality it was only released in 2000. And with this in mind, I don't believe I need to explain in any further detail why this is a deliberately dishonest thing to do, and an especially disgusting thing to try to pull in an academic work. In fact, I would have to call such deliberate misinformation nothing short of malicious in nature. The simple reality is that Professor Power and Professor Stahl bring nothing short of shame to the academic community by so blatantly trying to mislead their students and their readers. Now, for those curious, I will of course be providing links in the description below so you can see these sources for yourself. But in any case, this has been Ace. Hope to see you guys again soon. Take care. Ace out.